A framing contractor outside of Austin ran DeWalt cordless tools for 12 years straight. He knew the weight of every drill in his kit by feel. He could tell you the torque curve of his impact driver from memory. When his original set finally wore out in early 2022, he did what any loyal customer would do. He walked into his local supply house and bought the current versions of every tool he had relied on. Same brand, same yellow housing, same professional designation on the box. He spent just over $2,400 replacing everything. Within 8 months, 2 of the drills had failed. The first one lost power intermittently under load, shutting off mid-drive on 3-inch structural screws. The second developed a wobble in the chuck that made precision work impossible. His circular saw burned out its motor on a Tuesday afternoon in the middle of a reef frame, killing half a day of labor on a project that was already running behind schedule. When he called the manufacturer, the representative told him the tools were not rated for continuous professional use in high-heat environments. He asked what that meant, since he had been using the same brand in the same Texas heat for over a decade without a single motor failure. The representative repeated the disclaimer and offered him a discounted replacement. He did not want a discounted replacement. He wanted to know what had changed. So he opened up one of his dead drills and one of his old ones side by side on his workbench. The gearbox housing on the old drill was cast aluminum. The new one was molded plastic. The old drill had a serviceable motor with replaceable carbon brushes. The new one had a sealed unit designed to be thrown away when it failed. The old chuck had 6 ball bearings. The new one had 3. Same brand, same product line, same professional label on the box, completely different tool inside. This is not a story about one bad batch from one manufacturer. This is the story of an entire industry that quietly gutted its own products and bet that you would not notice until it was too late. They were right. Most people never open the housing. To understand how this happened, you have to understand who actually owns the brands you think you are choosing between. The power tool industry went through a consolidation between 2000 and 2020 that fundamentally changed what competition means in this market. Stanley Black & Decker now owns DeWalt, Porter Cable, Craftsman, Black & Decker, Irwin, and Lennox. One corporation controls all 6 of those names. Tektronix Industries, a Hong Kong-based conglomerate, owns both Milwaukee and Ryobi. Bosch operates its own tool division but has quietly shifted large portions of its consumer-grade production into the same contract manufacturing facilities that build tools for brands you have never heard of. When you stand in the tool aisle at a hardware store and compare a DeWalt drill to a Craftsman drill to a Porter Cable drill, you are not comparing 3 competing products built by 3 competing engineering teams. You are comparing 3 plastic housings designed by 3 different marketing departments wrapped around components that came from the same supply chain, approved by the same corporate finance office, and assembled under the same cost reduction targets. The motors are spec'd to the same price point. The switches come from the same vendors. The gearboxes meet the same minimum durability threshold, which is calculated not by how long a professional needs the tool to last, but by how short the warranty period can be without triggering excessive claims. This is what consolidation does at the factory level. It does not eliminate brands. It eliminates the engineering independence behind those brands. When a parent corporation acquires a tool company, the first thing that happens is the redundant engineering teams get merged or dissolved. The second thing is that procurement gets centralized so that all brands under the umbrella source from the same approved suppliers. The third thing is that every product in the portfolio gets evaluated against a margin target set by people who have never held a framing hammer. The brands survive as visual identities. The yellow means DeWalt. The red means Craftsman. The gray means Porter Cable. But behind the color, the competitive pressure that once forced each of those companies to build a better tool than the others has been replaced by a single mandate from a single boardroom. Reduce cost per unit. Maintain margin. Ship volume. When 3 corporations control roughly 80% of the tools sold in North America, they are not competing on quality. They are competing on shelf placement and marketing spend and the color of the housing. The engineering war ended years ago. Most of them surrendered. The changes did not happen all at once. That is what makes them so hard to see. They happened one part at a time, spread across years, so that no single change was big enough to make you angry. But when you line them all up, the picture is clear. Start with the motors. The industry moved from brushed motors to brushless motors over the last decade. Brushless technology is real, and it is better. The motors run cooler, last longer, and deliver more power per battery charge. That part is true. But here is what the marketing left out. A brushed motor had carbon brushes that wore down over time. When they wore out, you replaced them for a few dollars and the tool ran like new. A brushless motor has no brushes to replace, which sounds like an upgrade until the motor fails for any other reason. When a brushless motor dies, you do not fix it. You throw the tool away and buy another one. The shift to brushless gave manufacturers a way to sell you a better motor and a disposable tool in the same package. Now look at the gear housings. Open a professional-grade drill from 15 years ago, and the gearbox sits inside a cast aluminum housing. Aluminum is strong. It handles heat well. It does not flex under load. Open a current model from most major brands, and that housing is injection-molded nylon composite. It is lighter, which the marketing team lists as a feature. It is also cheaper to produce, which the marketing team does not mention. Nylon flexes under heavy torque. It does not move heat away from the gears the way metal does. The gears run hotter, and the housing gives just enough under stress to accelerate wear on the teeth. Then there are the chucks. A keyless chuck on a quality drill from 2008 used hardened steel jaws held in place by 6 ball bearings. That chuck gripped a bit and did not let go under load. Current models from several major brands have moved to 3-bearing designs with thinner jaws. The result is bit slippage under the kind of torque that framing and concrete work demand. Finally, the battery platform. Every major brand now locks you into a proprietary battery system. Once you own 3 or 4 batteries for one brand, switching to a competitor means abandoning hundreds of dollars in battery investment. The brands know this. They are counting on it. The battery platform is not a convenience. It is a leash. They did not make your tools worse in one move. They made them worse one part at a time across model years, so that no single change felt worth complaining about. By the time you noticed, you were 3 generations deep into a battery system you could not walk away from. So if most of the industry has surrendered, who is still fighting? Before naming brands, you need to understand the 4 things that separate a tool company that still builds for the person using the tool from one that builds for the quarterly earnings call. The first is manufacturing independence. The company controls its own factories and does not hand core components to the same contract manufacturers that build tools for everyone else. The second is repairability. Replacement parts exist. The tool is designed to be opened, serviced, and returned to work, not thrown in a dumpster when something breaks. The third is engineering continuity. The people designing the next generation of tools are the same people who designed the last generation. They are career engineers inside the company, not outside consultants rotating through on cost reduction projects. The fourth is professional accountability. The brand lives or dies on the job site. If quality drops, the tradespeople who depend on these tools every day will abandon the brand publicly and loudly, and the company knows it. 4 brands meet all 4 criteria. The first is Milwaukee. This requires an immediate clarification because Milwaukee is owned by Tektronix Industries, the same conglomerate that owns Ryobi. On paper, that should disqualify them. In practice, Milwaukee has operated with a degree of engineering independence that is unusual for a subsidiary. They develop their own motor technology in-house. Their M18 battery platform, launched in 2008, is still active and backward compatible nearly 2 decades later. They did not force professionals to abandon their batteries and start over the way other brands have done repeatedly. Their expansion into trade-specific tools like the M12 lineup shows an engineering team that talks to electricians and plumbers rather than marketing departments. The risk with Milwaukee is real. Corporate ownership means corporate priorities can change overnight. But so far, they have resisted the pressure that hollowed out every other brand under a conglomerate umbrella. The second is Makita. Makita is a Japanese-owned company that still manufactures a significant portion of its professional tool line in its own factories in Japan. They build their own motors. Their battery platform has been expanded and maintained, rather than scrapped and replaced. When you open a Makita tool, you find parts that were designed to be accessed. Brushes can be swapped, switches can be replaced. The tool was engineered by people who assumed a professional would use it for years and would need to service it during that time. That assumption, which used to be standard across the industry, is now rare enough to be a distinguishing feature. These are not perfect companies. They are companies that have so far resisted the specific pressures that destroyed everyone else. The distinction matters. The third brand is one most weekend buyers have never heard of and every serious woodworker already knows. Festool is a German company that manufactures its tools in Germany and has done so since 1925. They make track saws, rooters, sanders, and dust extraction systems that cost 2 to 3 times what you would pay for the closest competitor. That price gap is not branding. It is engineering. A Festool track saw does not simply cut straight. It cuts straight within fractions of a millimeter, repeatedly for years, because the guide rail system and the saw were designed together as a single precision instrument. Their dust extraction is not an accessory you attach after the fact. It is an integrated system engineered into every tool from the first draft. When a Festool tool is discontinued, replacement parts remain available for a minimum of 10 years. That is not a marketing promise. That is a manufacturing commitment backed by a company that owns its own parts supply chain. Festool is expensive, and it is not for everyone. But it represents what a tool company looks like when engineering decisions are not filtered through cost reduction targets. The fourth brand is not a power tool company at all. Knipex is a German hand tool manufacturer that makes pliers. That is what they do. They make pliers, and they make cutting tools, and they have been doing it in the same factory in Wuppertal since 1882. Their tools are forged from oil-hardened steel. The jaw geometry on their pliers wrench was designed by engineers who spent years testing grip patterns and forced distribution, rather than rushing a new model to market for a trade show deadline. Knipex does not redesign their products every year, they refine them across decades. The reason Knipex matters in this conversation is not that everyone needs German pliers. The reason is that Knipex represents the model the rest of the industry abandoned. A family-owned company with a single factory making tools that are designed once, improved slowly, and built to be the last version you ever buy. When the rest of the industry chose quarterly growth over product integrity, they were choosing against this model. They decided that engineering excellence was too slow and too expensive, and that consumers would accept disposable tools if the marketing was good enough. Knipex does not have a marketing department that could compete with any major American tool brand. They have pliers that your grandchildren will fight over in your estate sale. The industry decided that was the wrong trade-off. Not everyone can afford Festool. Not everyone needs Knipex pliers. The point of these 4 brands is not that you should buy only what they make. The point is that they show you what to look for and what to demand from every tool you spend money on. The criteria that set them apart are not secrets. They are things you can verify before you hand over your credit card. Before you buy any tool, find out where that specific model is manufactured. Not where the brand is headquartered. Not where the logo was designed. Where the tool in your hand was actually built and by whom. Then check whether replacement parts are available for that model. Not for the brand in general. For that specific tool. Can you buy a new switch for it? Can you buy a new gear set? Can you replace the chuck? If the answer is no, the manufacturer designed that tool to be thrown away when it breaks, and they priced it knowing you would have to buy another one. Stop reading sponsored reviews and start asking the people who use tools for a living, not the YouTube channels with affiliate links in the description. The electrician who has been pulling wire for 20 years, the cabinet maker who runs the same router 8 hours a day, the plumber who drops tools on concrete every week. These people do not care about brand colors or marketing campaigns. They care about what still works on Friday afternoon. Buy fewer tools and buy better ones. 3 quality tools will outperform and outlast 10 cheap ones over any 5-year stretch. And the money you think you are saving on budget tools gets spent twice when you replace them in 18 months. The tool industry used to operate on a simple agreement. You paid a fair price and you received a tool that would last. That agreement has been broken by consolidation and cost cutting, and the quiet realization that most consumers will blame themselves for a tool failure before they blame the manufacturer. The 4 brands that are still worth buying are not worth buying because they are flawless. They are worth buying because they still honor the original agreement. The rest of the industry figured out that you will buy a replacement before you ever demand an explanation. These 4 figured out that if they build it right, you will never need to call them at all. That is the only difference that matters.